You hear cancer and you're like, yo, I'm gonna die. Like, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. And I knew I couldn't panic. I was scared, and I gave myself permission. 10 minutes, I was like, yo, I'm gonna freak out. I went into the bathroom, and he had like this white porcelain sink with like a metal mirror, and I just held onto the sink and I looked in the mirror and I cried, and I was like, what the f? Like, it was hard. And I gave myself 10 minutes, and I said, all right, bottle this shit up, walk the fuck out, and beat this.
So I'm here with Jeff. He is the owner of Apocalypse BBQ. And if you're wondering like what's going on, why all these boxes in the background, that's actually because he's currently transitioning from his pop-up to an actual storefront. So congratulations on that.
Quick update. Apocalypse BBQ officially opened their restaurant in November 2022. This interview was recorded a week before their opening.
I do want to talk a little bit about how Apocalypse BBQ started. You have a very interesting background. There was a point in your life where you got a little bit sick and you had to find recipes that could cater to you, right? And that's one of the ways that Apocalypse came about.
Yeah, so there's a short version and a long version, right? The super short version is COVID happened and it kind of pushed me into a different direction of life. But how I got there, so I started cooking when I was really young. I was always barbecuing with my parents. Like, my dad's from Argentina, my mom is from Brazil. So meat in general, grilling, like that culture has always been very important to me. It's always been a part of what was going on. I love the communal aspect of it, bringing friends, bringing family together, and like lighting up the fire. As I got older, I got to start kind of doing that myself for my friends, and like, you know, and now I'll be doing that for my family. I'm getting married very soon, and I'm like really excited.
Congratulations.
Like, thank you. Shout out to my beautiful fiance.
Yeah.
Her name's Laura, and Laura's always in the front lines, and she actually works 2 jobs. She's really cool. She's a full-time nurse educator at Baptist, and then she leaves that job and she comes here and she helps with everything that we need also.
She's a boss, for sure.
She's a boss, 100%. When I started cooking way back when, I always wanted to kind of find new ways of like exploring and playing with flavors and stuff like that. And I'm a huge foodie and I love eating, clearly. So when I was in my early 20s, I kind of got into a health scare. I got diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, and one of the things with AML is that it messes with like your blood production. In my case, it messed with my immune system, and I wasn't producing white blood cells, and so I was very susceptible to getting sick. And my doctors were very adamant that if I went out to eat, I could pick up some sort of food poisoning. And for me, that was tragic because couldn't have ribs. It's like, how can you live without barbecue? Like, it's not gonna work.
What you do.
So I learned how to smoke in my backyard, and I picked up like a little Weber Smoky Mountain, and I just started making barbecue, and I would invite my friends over, and that was my way of kind of continuing the bonding. And it picked up as a hobby, like it was just something I was passionate about, but I never saw it as like, this is gonna be my bread and butter. Like, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. I was a marketer, and I was telling stories, and I was taking like beautiful images, and I loved helping craft brands, and like I loved helping getting other people's stories out. After I got sick, I found myself in a situation where I had a really, really wonderful corporate job, and I was doing really well, but I wasn't super fulfilled. I saw an opportunity to go out on my own and kind of figure out different things. I started working, first I worked for a couple smaller ad agencies because I thought I would work with other brands, and maybe since it was a smaller agency, I would be able to do more of my thing.
Doing their photography and their marketing is what you were doing at the time. That
wasn't really scratching the itch for me the way I thought, and I was like, you know what, like I just gotta make my own agency, like I'm gonna do it my way. And I did. I started a little ad agency, it was called Creative 7. I had just kind of kicked off. I had some really, really cool clients, and we were doing some really dope stuff. And then COVID comes around, and everybody's like, this marketing thing right now, we gotta kind of put a pause on it because we don't know what's gonna happen. I understand that, it's cool, but I also gotta pay my rent payment at the end of the month. So like, what am I gonna do, you know?
How long were you running your ad agency before COVID?
I launched my ad agency about 6 to 8 months before COVID happened.
Oh, so it was brand new.
It was brand new.
You were about to have to shut it down.
I had just kind of jumped into that world. So Laura's at the time, she was a bedside nurse, and so she was literally on the front lines of this thing. And of course, she's working and hustling. Her job is not anywhere near stopping because of everything that was going on. Right, it was literally the worst. to me, the worst was that she was just calling me all the time, like, yo, you got to run all the errands now. And I was like, bro, like.
But she's out here saving lives.
Right. So I couldn't be like, nah, I'm not going to do this, babe. Like, I'm like, yes, whatever you need. And then one day she was like, I need you to go to FedEx and send this package for me. And I was like, I remember I grabbed my stuff and I was walking out of the house. It was a sunny day. I step out and I'm walking out of the house and I'm like, bro, fuck the apocalypse. I'm so tired of this shit. Like, I just want to make barbecue.
Yeah.
And it like hit like a lightning bolt. It was like, boom. And I was like, yo, Apocalypse barbecue. And I think I might have even dropped her package. Like, I just left it there and I ran inside and I made an Instagram and I made a website and I was like, Apocalypse BBQ. And to be honest, I thought this was like a crazy idea that was going to last for 2 weeks and then I was going to forget about it. Foolish me, right? And then
now here we are.
Now here we are.
In the middle of the process of making the restaurant.
All right. And I was like, okay, cool. It's like, I was like, let me call my friends. I'm just going to tell them like, yo, I'm smoking some ribs this weekend. If you guys want, like, I'll make you an extra rack. Just pay me a couple, just pay me for the meat, whatever. I got like 2 orders. It wasn't anything crazy, but I got to make barbecue, so I was happy.
Yeah.
And then they told their friends, and like the next week we got 4 orders. And then the next week we had like 8 orders, and then 10 orders, and then like it just started moving. And then like next thing you know, like we're pumping out ribs. I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, like smoking ribs all day so people can come pick them up in the afternoon. And I'm like, dude, this is like a thing. Like
all in your house.
Yeah, and it's all inside my house. Like I'm prepping everything in the kitchen. Laura's freaking out because there's mountains of ribs everywhere. She's like, yo, my kitchen's a mess. Like
she has no idea. Like, what are you doing? Like, get to work.
But I mean, I have to give it to her. Like, she was super about it. Like she hustled, and like the days she wasn't there, she was the first one to be like, yo, you need a side. Like, you can't just do ribs. And it's like, she's like, let's figure out like some cornbread. So we started playing with some cornbread. And then her mother-in-law came in the mix, and my mother-in-law, I'm sorry, her mom. Yeah. I know how to make cornbread. I got this. And like, she started helping me make cornbread, and she's like, you need something sweet. So she started cranking out some cookies, and I'm like, yo, these cookies are fire. So now we have like, they're the famous cookies we have on our menu. And like, it was this little family thing. And like the 3 of us like started slowly putting it together. Then we found like a farmer's market that was like, yo, we'd love to have you guys here in the Grove. I would like have to wake up every Sunday morning. I had like a 2,000-pound smoker. We'd have to drag it onto a U-Haul, drag it down to the Grove, sell barbecue all day. It was super cool. Like, people, to me, the most shocking part in the beginning was like people coming to eat, enjoying the food, and they were like, yo, this is good. It's one thing when your friends tell you like, yo, this is good barbecue, because like you're feeding them, like these guys are paying for it, and they're like, yo, this is good, and you're like, damn, it must really be good. And people fell in love with it, and it was cool, and it was dope, and that was kind of the baby stage, and little by little it just picked up, and we've been we're
still in 2020.
We're still in 2020. Okay. Yeah, we're still in 2020.
It's only 2022, by the way.
Yeah.
Look where we're at now.
I've always been a big believer in like finding ways to turn your tragedies into triumphs, and like I learned that from experiences I had prior to this. For me, it was like, all right, we're in this difficult situation. Like, we can sit here and cry about it, or we can do something about it. And we did something about it, and here we are.
How did you think that you could grow, making barbecue into an actual sustainable business?
There's like a famous quote. I don't remember who the quote is or even how the quote goes, but it's something to the effect of like, if I would have known what it takes to make a movie before I made my first movie, I never would have made it. Yeah. I think about that now with like everything. I'm like, if I would have known what I was getting myself into, I probably would have been like, maybe I'll come back to this next week. I knew that I loved making food. I knew that I loved interacting with people. Like, I loved having people come and sit at our tables and like watching them create these memories while they were together. And like, our food was the glue that brought those families together. And that was really special, and I knew that I wanted to continue doing that, and I just had to figure out how to continue growing it. And I was really, really, really fortunate that a lot of people in this industry, I guess, saw something in me, and they were willing to help out. And like, people would just call me and be like, yo, like, I see what you're doing, I love your hustle, like, I want to contribute to this, like, I want to help you get to that next level. I was able to gain a lot of mentors and a lot of guidance from that, and that's really, hopefully I had people that pointed me in the right direction and helped me get here today.
Who was your biggest mentor in the industry?
So I think that's a lot of fold questions.
Yeah.
I'm always scared to answer this because I'm like, I'm going to forget to say someone important, and then they're going to call me and be like, oh, no. But going into it, before like it got really big, I already had a mentor. His name was Arturo. Still a mentor, great friend, someone that I love dearly. He showed me, he's in the hospitality game also. He's got a really dope spot in LA. He's doing some stuff here in Miami. If you ever heard of a little spot called Dante's Hi-Fi, like that's his joint.
Oh,
so
shout out.
Yeah, shout out Dante's. So, I would go to him with questions, and like, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, yo, what about this? What about this? And like, he helped guide me in that infancy stage. And then once we got to Wynwood at Box Elder, John Falco from Fire Pit Hospitality came out and had barbecue one day, and he was kind of like, dude, like this barbecue needs to exist in Miami. He liked it, you know, and I'm happy that he liked it. Fortunately, he's the kind of person that wants to see this city grow, and he wants to see the next generation of food and beverage like really flourish. And it's not just with me, it's with anyone that was to seek guidance. Like, he has an open door policy and he helps everyone that comes through, and I just got really lucky to kind of go through his door, and he's someone that really helped guide me in the right direction.
And you'll pay it forward eventually. You'll be someone else's mentor.
The unspoken deal was like, I help you, you help the next person, and I'm super for that. Like, I try my hardest. If anybody in the pop-up game like is ever like, yo, you know, I don't know, I want to move to the next level, I want to do what you're doing, like, I don't have the world's biggest encyclopedia of help, but whatever I know, I will share with anyone. Like, anyone that wants to hit me up, people DM me all the time like, yo, we want to get started doing barbecue, and I'm like, dude, let's do it. Like, let's talk about it, let's figure it out. Where are you at? This is what you're gonna need. Like, I'm super happy to help, because I don't believe in competition. I think there's enough food on the table for everybody. Yeah. So I believe in community.
You all make it with your own style anyways.
Right. And no one's gonna do it the way you do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the really cool thing. Cheeseburgers, barbecue, pizza, whatever the food, the beverage, cocktails, anything, like, you are never gonna make it the way I make it, even if I give you the recipe exactly to the gram. It's always going to be different, because you're going to add your own love to it. And I think the world needs that. You know, I think Miami needs that. That was one of the big factors that was guiding Apocalypse, was that we wanted to create kind of like the Miami flavor of barbecue. And in order to do that, we had to kind of infuse the flavors of this city. I know other people have tried to do that in the past, and they've created really cool, unique recipes. But none of them have been like what we're doing. And I think other people are going to come and do the same, following in our footsteps. And I think their take on it is also going to be very different. And that's amazing.
I wanted to ask you, since we were talking also about mentoring other people and, you know, people who might be within the same industry, how did you know when it was time, like, okay, you're doing well in the pop-up, how do you know when it's time to take that leap and do all of this?
I didn't. I still don't know if it's the right time. I kind of just knew that we were pushing forward. I think that success is just opportunity and readiness intersecting. And I knew that we were ready, and an opportunity presented itself. And it was kind of like, okay, we do this or we don't. So one day we were at a pop-up. We used to do these pop-ups at Box Elder, and that's where we first started. We used to have these insane 2-3 hour waits to order a burger, and then like another hour and a half to get your burger. So like going there was a whole day experience kind of thing. It's actually pretty bad in retrospect, but we were just overwhelmed, and then we were just starting. And I remember one day, my current partner JJ was waiting in line, and he was like, dude, like, why don't you guys have a restaurant? Like, you should definitely have your own spot. And I was kind of joking, and I was like, bro, I'm just waiting for you to give me, you know, a couple $100,000 and we'll make it happen. And he laughed, and he was like, whatever, haha, funny. And then like 9 o'clock that night, I get a message from JJ, and he's like, yo, I believe in what you're doing. If you want to make it happen, I got a check for you.
What?
And I was like, yo.
You've been blessed.
I was like, yo, like, you know, that was readiness, right? So then readiness and like being prepared, and then an opportunity came here at Killian Greens. When that opportunity came knocking, we were like, okay, we're ready to go. So we definitely made it happen.
I feel like that's also an example of when you're doing something that's meant for you and aligns with you, like opportunities just start coming.
I believe like if you put something out into the universe, I think the universe will conspire to make it happen.
When you were diagnosed with leukemia, there were a lot of foods that you could not eat. And that's when you had to kind of figure out what it is that you could eat. Is that what contributed to you cooking as well?
1,000%. I was kind of in like a weird situation where I didn't have access to like restaurants and like being able to just go grab whatever I wanted. And I obviously still craved certain foods. Like I was still human, you know, like I still wanted to eat. And so I just had to figure it out. And I was just like, okay, well, I want to eat some ribs. I guess I got to learn how to make ribs. So I got myself a little smoker, like a little Weber Smoky Mountain thing. And I just took a try. And the first one was okay. And then the second one was a little better. And I just kept practicing. And that's how I started getting into the barbecue thing. And it was really thanks to like having that skill set, was really thanks to going through that experience, which also is like what forged that mindset. Having gone through that cancer experience is really what strengthened my mind to be ready for something like COVID, where life kind of just hits you in the stomach and you can either sit down and cry about it or get up and do something about it. So having gone through that really set me up for being able to endure this.
Well, you went through the hardest thing that you could have gone through.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. And I tell people a lot, like very, all the time, I tell people like going through cancer was hard, but it's also was, for me, was a very great thing. Like, I have a lot of appreciation for that chapter in my life. I learned a lot about myself, about life, about appreciating the moments, and it really helped shape and define me. And it's not something that I regret or I'm bitter about. I guess I could be upset that I lost my 20s to being in a hospital room. It took on and off fighting almost 10 years to get through that. At the time, I was training, I was kind of like powerlifting and stuff, and I was doing a lot of fitness stuff. I was strong. I was at my strongest I've ever been in my life. I was super proud of it too. I got sick, but like nothing crazy. I got a cold, or like a weird cold, and I couldn't shake the cough. I got over the cold and I just kept coughing and coughing.
Lingering.
Yeah, and it was like weeks, and I was like, all right, well, this is kind of messed up. Like, I need to get rid of this cough. So I went to the doctor, and I was like, dude, like, I won't stop coughing. Like, hook me up, get me some medicine, whatever. And he's like, look, bro, like, he didn't say look, bro. He's like, look, man, you know. Yeah, he's like, well, your yearly checkup is coming. I think we should just go ahead and handle that. You're here. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's kill two birds with one stone. So he did my blood test, and he sent it off to LabCorp or whatever, and I was like, all right, I'm out. And that was Wednesday. Saturday night, I got a phone call from my doctor. And you know it's not good when your doctor calls you on a Saturday night. Like, these are definitely not doctor hours.
Right.
And so Saturday night, I get a phone call from my doctor, and he's like, yo, what are you doing? And I was like, maybe he wants to party. I don't know. And I was like, I'm chilling. I'm like, I don't know. I'm getting ready to go out. He's like, all right, stop all that. I need you to come to the hospital. Well, and he's like, I have your results from your blood test. He's like, I'm going to be honest, I think it's a mistake. It doesn't make sense. What I'm seeing on this paper and what I see when I look at you, they don't add up, but I need to know because you can't be walking around if this is right. And my buddy was like on the way to my house, like he gets there, like right when I get off the gun, I'm like, dude, like I got to go to the hospital. And he thought I was joking. I go to the hospital and, you know, I'm sitting in the hospital room, they do all the tests and the results come back and they're like, it's not wrong. There's something very off here. Like all your blood counts are on the floor, like super low. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, we need to test more. We don't know what it means, but you can't leave the hospital. And so for 2 weeks, I just sat in the hospital room at Mercy and they were testing and testing and testing. And they literally exhausted all the options except for one. The only thing that it could possibly be is leukemia. And we need to do a bone marrow biopsy to find out. I had my first bone marrow biopsy and they did the test and it came back and they're like, yeah, man, like you have AML, acute myeloid leukemia.
And what was that like finding out at that moment, especially knowing that you were at the best shape of your life, you were lifting heavy, you were doing great.
It was definitely like, it was a shock, right? Like you kind of, I don't think there's anything that'll ever get you ready to hear like you have cancer. Like that's such a powerful word, you know, and it's such a heavy, scary monster. And to get told that, you're like literally 2 weeks ago, you were on top of your game at a bar, like drinking, hanging out with your friends. And then all of a sudden you're like, you hear cancer and you're like, yo, I'm gonna die. Like that's the first thing that comes to your mind. And I knew I couldn't panic. I was scared. And so I gave myself permission. 10 minutes, I was like, yo, I'm gonna freak out. And I went into the bathroom. I remember I was in my doctor's office. I went into the bathroom and he had like this white porcelain sink with like a metal mirror. And I just held onto the sink and I looked in the mirror and I cried. And I was like, what the fuck? Like it was hard. And I gave myself 10 minutes and I said, all right, bottle this shit up, walk the fuck out and beat this. And I did.
Wow.
And so, you know, it was just this mentality that no matter what, cancer was tough, but I was going to be tougher. And I knew that I was going to go balls to the wall and I was going to fight and I was going to give it my all. That was kind of the first thing in my life that was like, you can face whatever challenge is going to come your way.
And that was the first time
that you were
diagnosed. So that lasted for about a year?
I went into remission and my doctor was like, you need to get a bone marrow transplant. Like that's the only way that we're going to cure this, right? Like you're in remission, but you still have some cancer in you. Like we need a bone marrow transplant. Yeah. The more diverse your background is, the harder it is to find a match. When they went looking for one, they couldn't find one. And so that first time around, they're like, yo, we gave you the best treatment we can up until this point. Now you just got to cross your fingers and hope it doesn't come back. And we crossed our fingers and we hoped really hard, but a year later it came knocking on the door and it was like, all right, we got to do this again. And so that second time around was a lot more intense, was a lot more challenging.
I'm guessing here you were like 25?
Yeah, I was mid-20s at that point. And we went through the treatment. They were able to find a donor, just barely qualified. It matched on the most minimal level, but it was the only option we had. And so we took it. You know, it was a gamble. There was a lot of chances that it wasn't going to work out. I knew that going into it, but I also knew I had to make it work. So we took the opportunity. I took the bone marrow transplant and really, really fortunate to have come out of that super in good, like as good as you could come out of that. I definitely have my battle scars, but you know, that's what happens when you go to war. I was able to bounce out of it, and now I'm 6 years cancer free. So
wow,
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. Were you with your fiance at the time, by the way, when you were diagnosed?
No, I met her much later. I met her afterwards. I actually got her through my cooking skills. She will not tell you this. This is supposed to be a secret. Actually, the story's a little bit more corny than that. So I had seen her in the gym, and she caught my attention. She had some really nice assets to her, and I was like, oh wow.
Oh wow.
And I went to go say hi. She was like singing along to like a Nicki Minaj song, and I'm normally pretty, like, I think I'm pretty smooth, and I don't know what happened that day. I was just off my game, and I was like, you know, like, I don't know what you do for a living, but if it doesn't work out, you could be a karaoke singer.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like this freaking loser. Like,
and at the gym.
At the gym of all places. And
that's
she
when
like,
we're like, stop talking about
right. She's like literally just walks away from me, and I'm like, all right, well, I blew that one. So I remember I had taken a picture of her, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna send this picture to her friend and be like, yo, you should share it with her. And I sent her the picture through her friend, whatever, and her friend shared it with her, and like then she started following me on IG, and like I was like, okay, now I got a chance. Like I know she's following me, right? We're IG friends. And then one day I was cooking a steak at home, and she sees me cooking the steak, and she's like, damn, you know how to eat. And I was like, come over and I'll show you.
Ooh,
and so I got my smoothness back, and I was like, come over and I'll show you. And you know, she came over, and she's been living with me since.
Aww.
And now we're getting married.
And now you're getting married.
And now we're getting married.
Oh, happy story.
Yeah.
See, like if you ever ruin it, you feel like you missed your shot with someone.
Yes, there's always a chance. You can always bounce back. That's for all the fellas. Like you can always bounce back.
You redeemed yourself. Circle it back to Apocalypse. What's the future of Apocalypse?
We haven't really planned it out that far ahead, so we're really hoping that Apocalypse is going to branch off into other really cool opportunities. We want to introduce a lot of different foods, not just in Apocalypse, but there's a lot of other food styles. Like I feel like now I have an opportunity to just host parties all the time and like do dinner jams, and like so now I want to do that, right? So we want to keep creating cool dishes. Maybe that branches off into different concepts. We'll see what happens. But for right now, we're really going to be focused on giving Miami the most Miami barbecue that we can create. And I know there's other people have had different iterations of that, and other people have tried to do that, and we fully respect that and definitely want to embrace the culture. We have our views on what that's going to be, and we're trying to bring that into the mix, bringing in the flavors that we think represent the city. One of them being like Cuban coffee. We use colada and like so much of the stuff we do, like our ribs and one of our barbecue sauces. And you know, the typical guava, the mango, all of our tropical fruits definitely have to have a presence. And little by little, we're just going to kind of start playing with this stuff. And ideally, in my head, I envision a traditional barbecue joint with a very non-traditional twist. And little by little, we'll just bring in all the elements we can and just kind of try to make the foods that we all grew up knowing and loving, like the stuff like that we all had at every Ventanita in Miami, and just give it like a barbecue version. Try to do something cool.
So you have a lot of new flavors coming up.
Yeah, that's the idea.
It's gonna be good, and plus you're building the space now for it. You're gonna have a little lounge in the back as well.
Yep.
Open late night, so it's gonna be a great local spot for people to come to. You don't have to go all the way to Wynwood, Brickell, or any of those, you know, like mainstream spots. This will be the spot.
I want to take this opportunity also, want to give you a big thank you. You did a top 5 burger list, and we were co-number 1 with my boy Teddy T. I'm very proud to be on that same level, and it's very cool to be recognized like that. And we hope we have a lot of other things that we can contribute to other lists you make that we can come up at number 1 in the very near future.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to all of that. And guys, once again, his burgers are delicious. They really are the best. If you haven't tried it yet, you really have to try it. You won't regret it. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you so much.
No, thank you, for sharing your story with us. Like, this is amazing what you're doing. Love to see you grow, and I know that there will be much success, so big things coming.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Peace, guys.